Greetings to all and welcome to the wild, weird, and wacky world of the Word. Yep, and it's getting a little wild, weird, and wacky today when we look at Psalm 52. Psalm 52, that's not our psalm for today. Well, it is if you were following the Revised Common Lectionary second Old Testament tract of readings, which is from Amos, the 8th chapter. We talked about it a couple days ago, in which Amos talks about this fruit basket, and this is the summer harvest. It looks good, but it's all coming to an end. What's coming to an end? Israel is coming to an end, because all they talk about and all they care about is money and more money, and making money at any cost, including cheating the poor and the needy in the nation. And no, that's not going to happen, God says. And because it is happening, judgment is coming your way. You will be destroyed. Not a very good prophecy that Amos had to give, but he did. And Psalm 52 is paired up with that, because what we have going here is judgment against an individual. His name was Doeg. Who's Doeg? Well, Doeg happened to be one of King Saul's right-hand men. In fact, he was in charge of the wealth of King Saul, and wealth was all the different. It says he was a herdsman. Well, no, it was more than that. He was in charge of all the herds that King Saul had, and that's where his wealth was built up through, and where it was contained in all these massive herds that he had. And how do you get that big? Well, sometimes you get that big by swindling and cheating others out of their herds. So see, this is the setup that's going on. Now, what's happening, though, is you have to go back to the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, and there you find that David is on the run from Saul, because Saul's out to kill David, because Saul knows that David's going to be the next king, and Saul doesn't like that, and it's just a really nasty situation. But as David is fleeing from Saul, he ends up in this little village town. It could be like a Gasport, it could be like a Middleport, Newfane, something like that, very small. And there's a priest there, Abimelech. And well, let me read what it comes to at the very beginning of the psalm. There's a little title that was added a little bit later in the life of Israel, and it says this: to the leader, a maskil of David, when Doeg the Edomite came to Saul and said to him, David has come to the house of Abimelech. Now, what that's all about is Abimelech was the priest in this little village, and he helped out David, gave him bread from the altar to feed his little band of followers that were helping him to flee from Saul, and also gave him some weaponry, gave him the sword that David actually killed Goliath with when he cut off his head. Because we know we did the slingshot thing, knocked him out, but the sword is what did him in. So you have all that going on, and Doeg, he was there, he witnessed all this, and he snitched on David, and he actually snitched on Abimelech, the priest. Went to Saul. Saul gets all ticked off and comes and says, that's it, take care of him. And Doeg kills the priest, his whole family, everybody associated with the priesthood there, everybody in the village, kills them all. So David goes on and he writes this psalm, supposedly, and and even if he didn't write it, you read into it this whole story from 1 Samuel. And he's talking about, why do you boast, O mighty one? He's talking about Doeg. And your tongue is like a sharp razor, you worker of treachery. You love evil more than good, and lying more than speaking the truth. And here's the judgment that is given. But God will break you down forever. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. He's going to take you and just pull you right up by the roots and toss you out. Now, what David now does is he compares himself to a good tree. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. And I will thank you forever because of what you have done in the presence of the faithful. I will proclaim your name, for it is good. So there's a distinction being made between Doeg, the bad guy, David, the good guy, and how there's going to be judgment. But what's so wild and weird and wacky about this is it's in the book of Psalms. We have the judgment like this in the book of Psalms. Yeah, we have it not only here, but in other places as well. So be watching for it, be careful for it, but also be able to assess that psalm and say, why is that there? Well, the people face up with a lot of evil in their lives. The whole history of Israel is filled with such treachery, if you want to call it that. And there's one constant that's important for the people of Israel. That is to remain true and faithful to Yahweh, to God. And when that happens, you will be blessed. You will be like this green olive tree in the house of God. You won't find yourself uprooted and sitting on the burn pile as Doeg did. Well, God's blessings be with you, and go ahead and read it. Psalm 52. It's one that will get your day started, but it's also one that does make you contemplate and think about your own life. What would you rather be? That one on the burn pile or the one that's flourishing in the house of God? God's blessings be with you.